You're listening to Conservation Connection. I'm Chance.
I'm Sarah Catherine.
We're a husband and wife team running an environmental education nonprofit that's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that by introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals working to protect our planet and ask them about their career,
Their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with the Sun Valley Forum in Sun Valley, Idaho.
The Sun Valley Forum is an intergenerational meeting of forward-thinking professionals that come from a diverse range of disciplines.
These experts are on the cutting edge of what's happening in the fight for our future, and they've all come together at the Sun Valley Forum to share ideas and to collaborate on solutions for a greener tomorrow.
Let's get to the show.
Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. We are here at the Sun Valley Forum in Ketchum, Idaho, 2023. Incredibly excited to be back here at the forum. We've gotten some great episodes already, and I'm very sure that this is going to be another one of those. So we're here sitting down with Jaime Nack. She is the president and founder of Three Squares, Inc.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to speak with you both. And it's also my first time here in Ketchum and at Sun Valley. So it's been a great experience so far.
So last year was our first time here, and just walking around town is amazing. It's just such a beautiful little mountain town. It's just the perfect setting for the kind of conversations that we're having here this week.
Exactly. On the ride in from the airport, the drivers, I said, so how big is the town? And he said, there are 3 stop signs. That was his way of describing the town. I said, okay, I got it. I'm from LA, 3 stop signs versus the 405 freeway. I got it.
A little different.
Yeah.
A little different.
They have the little flags you can pick up while you cross the road,
Aww.
you know.
It's adorable. I love it here.
So why don't we start off with you just telling us a little bit about Three Squares, Inc.?
Sure. So I founded the company back in 2008. So we are 15 years old. I can't even believe it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we are a certified small and women-owned business, green business, carbon neutral business. I come from the environmental consulting space, but I heavily focused on clean transportation in my previous roles. And I wanted to create a firm that was truly a sustainability consulting firm. We wanted to address not just transportation, but energy, waste, water, all of the areas that companies and organizations and government agencies need to address. So it was early days. A lot of times, the firm back in 2008, many firms like ours, like an environmental consulting firm, specialized in an area like water or transportation or energy. So we were one of the first movers really in developing a sustainability consulting firm. And I think that's why, we've been doing it longer than a lot of folks. It's been a wild journey. We've designed and implemented sustainability strategies on all 7 continents in 13 languages.
Wow.
And we're industry agnostic. So we work across we work from automotive, from Honda to Lamborghini, from tech, from Adobe to Microsoft, fashion from Nike to Louis Vuitton, airlines. We cover a lot of different industries, but everything that we do is embedding the sustainability commitment throughout the organization.
So essentially, an organization reaches out to you guys and says, hey, we want to be more sustainable. We don't know how to do that. Can you help us come up with a strategy to make that happen, right?
Exactly, yeah. So in some cases, they're really just taking their first step. And so they need a trusted advisor to guide them along the process. In other cases, they may have an existing program, but they want to scale it up or rev it up. And then most recently, there have been a lot of new regulations. And here in the U.S., the SEC it has a proposed new ruling, which is going to make climate risk reporting mandatory. So for a lot of publicly listed companies, this is creating the unknown, the fear of what does this mean? And so they need advisors to help guide them through that process.
Because the fear is that stakeholders in the company are going to be able to say like, hey, how are we addressing this? How are we aware of what our climate risks are in our portfolio? What are you doing about it? And hiring you is what they're doing about it, right?
Exactly. And I think, in a lot of cases, if they haven't measured before, imagine if you haven't measured, it's hard to know where you're going and what you need to reduce or which areas to focus on. So I think that creates some hesitancy or fear. I think also the fact that if you're a listed company, your investors and how you're looked at externally, your stock price, if you will, your performance on a financial basis is addressed. But now people will look at your performance on an environmental, social, and governance basis. And if you're failing or showing weak performance, it might make investors worry and your price might go down.
So y'all basically help kind of build a roadmap of like, okay, here's from development to implementation, here's what you need to do and how we're going to do it.
You said it better than I did.
Okay, great.
You're hired. Yes, exactly. And so there's like the wonky side of it, the carbon accounting, the measurement. And then there's what I would call the fun side of it, which is really getting into building out, employee resource groups or green teams and engaging employees, engaging your suppliers and really helping them be on the journey with you. Since for a lot of these companies, they might just direct the work, but the supply chain is really their footprint, right? And where their impact lies. And so they can create a tremendous impact if they engage their suppliers.
And that also seems just obscenely logistically complex to take a look at a large company's supply chain where they don't even know where half the stuff is truly originating from or the conditions that it's coming from and saying, all right, we're going to make this better. From an outside perspective, that seems like climbing Mount Everest. And that it's really, really impressive that you've got teams that are managing logistics that complex.
It is. And I would say, and it's not easy and it's not perfect. So I think what we're seeing is on the policy side, the policies that governments and regions are putting forth is really helping push this effort forward, because then it's making everyone aware of what needs to happen in order to measure and in order to implement properly. Otherwise, if it's solely a voluntary activity, as you know, not many people opt in to taking on a big chunk of work if they don't have to, because everyone's resource constrained right now. And so the idea here is that when you can work with policy to really shape what the landscape is in terms of what you're going for from a climate perspective or social impact perspective, and then you can engage the private sector and the companies to do their share, it works really well.
So what are some of the ways that you're engaging on the policy side of things and sort of helping governments and municipalities figure out what their goals are?
Yeah, so it depends. So we work all over the world.
I know, right? It's hard because you do so much in so many places to ask specific questions.
Exactly. But I love working with cities. So from like a micro standpoint, cities have a lot of room to create localized impact. And so the first step usually is developing a climate action plan. And so working with cities, we support cities in developing out the climate action plan, which is exactly what you said, a roadmap for the steps that you take. And usually that process is super rewarding because you're involving the stakeholders within the city. So it's
right.
Youth, it's seniors, it's faith-based, it's all of the different, players that help shape a city's structure.
And who doesn't want their city to succeed well into the future, right? It's got to be a lot of people that are really excited about climate proofing the city. For sure.
And I mean, if you look at sea level rise, for example, and you're talking about Miami or any of these island nations, this is very real for them. So building in that resiliency plan and building in the strategies that allow you to look at what your city is going to look like in 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, it really helps both inspire the motivation to change and then the innovation and like, what can you create? How can you create your city for the future?
In the 15 years that y'all have been around since the founding of Three Squares Inc., how have you seen the business grow and how have you seen the field that you're working within grow?
So I would say even in the last 12 to 18 months, there's been a huge uptick in the interest. And I think that's been driven by regulation. So we, have a long list of clients who are approaching us, especially the larger listed companies, or even the law firms that service these companies, because they're getting the requests and lawyers are like, what do we do with this? We've never measured climate risk before. And so it's a new category that their clients are asking them about. So we've seen a huge increase. In the early days, like I said, we were a first mover. So it was a little bit of what they call like a blue ocean. You're creating a service or a product, but the demand might not necessarily be there yet. So we were early for a lot of the service areas that we were playing in. And so I think we couldn't be as choosy in terms of the projects that we took on. We had to really, work with those who were ready and able to work with us. And so we took on smaller projects. We took on shorter term projects. Whereas now, I firmly believe we're all on this beautiful earth for a limited amount of time. And I want to make sure that we have the biggest impact that we can have. And so I want to work on big projects that push industries forward, versus taking on the smaller projects. And that's what we're able to do now.
Mm-hmm.
And what an awesome metric of your growth as a company that you can say, like, these small projects are good and awesome, and they were an important stepping stone. But now we can look at whole industry scale change and try and push that forward. That's really, really fantastic.
It's fun. So one of my favorite industries that we're working with is music. I'm a big music lover. So we're working actively with the three majors. So Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music. And then we also work on live music. So we just manage sustainability for Coachella, one of the largest music festivals in the U.S. And another one a couple months ago called Cali Vibes, which was a festival in Long Beach representing California culture and music, which is definitely close to my heart, hip hop and reggae. And so being able to shape an industry like music that also has a reach because of the artists can use their voice for climate action or for social impact. To me, I feel like that's one of the ways that we can step out of our silo of being like an environmentalist and reach people who might not, be as into this and be, absorbing this every day like we do.
Right, because people aren't buying tickets to Coachella because they're like, oh, it's so sustainable. They're buying tickets because they want to go see our favorite artists. But it opens up this platform for conversation that either the artist directly can say, hey, here's what's happening at Coachella to make this better, or, having branding around the festival that just puts more eyes on the problem. And that's what we need, right? That kind of all hands on deck situation where through every avenue, we're raising awareness.
And it's fun, right? You can use those opportunities to make it fun. Like there's Carpoolchella to encourage carpooling. On site, we have water refilling stations. So we encourage people to bring their reusable water bottles instead of buying, individual bottles from vendors over and over again. All of the food served to the 250,000 people is served in compostable ware. And so awesome. They can basically toss that into the compost bin that's right there. And then there's recycling bin. So we really divert as much as we can. But it's also those education touch points, which is what makes it fun for us.
Before we leave that thought, do you have any numbers on the difference between Coachellas that you were not doing sustainability for and the kind of impact you were able to have in just that one music festival?
So they haven't published numbers yet. But I can tell you, we've worked on all different types of events, from music festivals to the ESPY Awards, to the Academy Awards, to the last 4 Democratic National Conventions. So we work on all different types of events, large and small. And what I can say is that every time we work on something, we not only track and measure the numbers for that event, but we try to leave a lasting change at the venue. So we've worked with the Hilton in Hilton Reforma in Mexico City, and we did a pilot compost program there. And I worked with the regional director for the Hilton Latin America, and I said, look, we're going to implement this for you. You basically get free consulting because it was through our client's event there, but promise me that if it's successful, you'll keep it. And he said, okay. And so we did the composting pilot. It was successful over the course of the 3-day event. And he kept it and he used it as an example to share with the other Latin American properties. And that's what we like to see, is because then you're planting these seeds and it can spread.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like with what you're doing, especially at these bigger events that more people are coming to, it takes that kind of repetition and people seeing that over and over and like using it. And then it just becomes the new normal for them if they see it enough. So I think that's really cool that y'all are doing that at these music festivals and hotels and conferences and stuff.
Yeah. And to have, like, for the venues, to have this free, zero cost to them, come in and make some changes and say, here's how it works. Look how easy it is.
Yeah.
Look how useful this is. And in many cases, I'm sure it's helping their bottom line as an organization, if not directly through profits, but through their ESG, that risk management that we've just been talking about. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And I have to say, because I know your audience, you have a bunch of young leaders out there. And so I want to encourage everyone to use your voice for power as well, because I think people often underestimate the amount of influence that they have. And they think, I'm just a student, or I'm not a senior executive, I'm not on the board. You don't have to be any of that. And on the artist front, Billie Eilish is someone that we really respect on Universal and work with the team there. And what we've seen from her pushing for both climate and also just for plant-based food, she was able to turn the O2 Arena in London plant-based for a week.
Wow.
Now, when you think of that, most of these stadiums and arenas, they have contracts with their concessionaires. And it's like, you can't break through those contracts. It's impossible. The concessionaire wants to just serve the same thing every day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So to make that request, like, I'm not going to perform here. Somebody's not going to make a lot of money from me performing here if you don't go vegan or plant-based for this week, because I want to show my attendees, my fans, that it's possible and it's fun to eat this way. And she made it happen, just by making that request. And so there could be future Billie Eilishes listening right now, from any industry. And I just want to encourage you to start the discussion and make those requests as you go through your building out your career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely remember like mid-college time where I felt like the world was just this black box of decisions just get made, like passive voice, as opposed to everything in our society is just people talking to other people and coming to a consensus. And an individual may have more reach than another individual, but doesn't have any more power to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So even on the smallest scale, talking with one person about a cause that you care about or a small change that you can make, that can grow and ripple out.
Yes.
And not only that, but it's also great practice for when you are someone with a bunch of reach. You have those experiences of like, these are things I care about. These are ways that I know to help people make these changes.
Yep.
So how did you get to this point of founding Three Squares Inc.? Like, what was your life leading up to this?
So it was not a straight path. I mentioned music. So in my college days, I was really involved in producing concerts on campus at UCLA. And then in my junior year, I ran this office called the Cultural Affairs Commission. And so we used to produce this big jazz and reggae music festival. I loved reggae music. And so actually my first business was a booking and management company for reggae artists from Jamaica.
Wow.
So I had that for 7 years. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth on running a small business. But in terms of I like to wear multiple hats, I guess.
Yeah.
And kind of fuel my passion areas in different ways. So I was passionate about music. I was doing that. I was also, in college, and then went to graduate school, got my master's in public policy and international trade. And I was always focused on how can I affect change on the landscape around me. I chose the policy route, but I knew I didn't want to work inside government. It felt too stifling for me and too slow. And as you can tell, I like to move quickly and I like to get things done. So I started looking at consulting and joined an environmental consulting firm, like I said, focused on clean transportation, and loved the work. I dove in and really got to know everything about ports and goods movement and trucks and locomotives and sea freight and air freight. Really, really fun stuff. And I loved the work, but I felt like it was only touching one slice of the pie. And so that's why after building up my confidence of working at that consulting firm, I was like, I can do this. I'm going to go out on my own, and picked 2008, which is the year of an economic recession, to do so. But it was the best decision ever. We've had double-digit growth ever since, and it's just been an incredible journey.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on that
you.
journey.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely tell that you're the kind of person. I mean, we've been talking for about 20 minutes, and I can tell that you are an unstoppable force. Like, you just have this energy of like, okay, well, you don't want to do that. I'll figure out somebody who does want to help me do this, and kind of get your way around it. And that kind of tenacity, I think, is really valuable in the world today, especially when you're fighting for causes like climate change and sustainability in general, and you're going to get told no a lot.
Yes.
You're going to have a lot of places where you just get doors slammed in your face, and being able to say, all right, well, there's another door right there. Let's go check that one out is critical and really, really, really important.
So I know that this isn't the only business and thing you do that you have on your plate. You mentioned to us before we started the interview that you were just in the Arctic. So why were you there?
Yeah. So last week, actually, I was in Greenland, which is a beautiful, beautiful, stunning place. I co-host Arctic expeditions for small groups of young leaders, of influencers. My last trip was in 2019, and then COVID happened, so we were on pause. But the trip in 2019 was so powerful. I co-host with the World Economic Forum, and then with a partner out of Germany called Active Philanthropy. And we brought 20 young global leaders from 16 different countries, 50% male, 50% female, up to the Arctic, and we workshopped them through this climate action workshop. And it was a diverse group. We had a professional European footballer or soccer player. We had the Minister of Technology from Bangladesh, a Congress member from Argentina, chair of Amnesty International from Malaysia, TV newscaster from Istanbul, Turkey. So very diverse group.
Yeah.
But they all were able to see and process this firsthand by being up in the Arctic. And then the workshop teaches them how to apply this climate action lens to their work. And there was an experience that we had on that trip, which I'm just going to share, that was so powerful. We took them on this helicopter ride over this Ilulissat Greenland glacier. We land in this area where it looks like you're landing on the moon. It's literally like gray rock. And we tell them to do this biomimicry sit and stay exercise where we say you have 30 minutes, find a rock by yourself, sit in silence, and take in the message from Mother Nature. And the message that we received during that 30 minutes was so powerful. I filmed it on my with shaky hands on my camera and uploaded it. I created a YouTube channel. I didn't have one. Created a YouTube channel, uploaded that video, and it's a 2-minute video of this massive mountain of this glacier calving in front of us. And
Wow.
and you just hear these boom, boom of the ice crashing into the water below. And it literally felt like it was a call to action for us. Like almost like we're in war. These are bombs dropping. You need to do something. And so
Wow.
I've played that
I'm
video.
literally getting chills right now.
Yeah, I've played that video every time. I'll probably play it tomorrow when I speak here because I promised that group, I promised myself I wanted to share that message moving forward. So when I speak to boards, I play that video. And I can send it to you so you can share it in the notes. But
You may have
super
seen me
powerful.
writing YouTube
Okay.
link on my
Yes.
folio
Yeah.
because
There's only one video there.
yeah.
And it's been seen like I think 300,000 times.
Oh my
but
gosh.
that's part of the reason why we go there. It's pro bono. I do this out of my give back to the community. I was named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in 2011, and I wanted to bring this climate expertise to that community. So this is something that me and another member of that community do to give back. And so we just returned from Ilulissat, Greenland. This time we did not witness such an event because it was snowing. So it was actually, the last time we were there was during a heat wave. This time it was during this weird hot, cold thing going on. But the message is the same, that the poles are melting. And, you have to think of the North and the South poles as like our air conditioner. And so if we lose that, think about what that does to the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just can't imagine the value to you and to everybody who's experiencing that of being able to go to these places that very few people visit or see with their own eyes and experience directly the effects of a changing climate.
Yeah.
Right. And also to do it multiple times and to see that it is different each time you go. I mean, they're what a pressing message of experiencing that. And I can only imagine that that's sort of reinvigorating you to larger projects and trying to further push your reach. I mean, that on a much smaller scale that happens with us when, in between podcasting sessions or when we're kind of like figuring out what our next project is going to be, it's kind of a lull. And then you get into it and you have these conversations and you're like, I'm going to take on the world. We're going to go fix this outside right now. Let's go. You know, and that's, I think, really important to find what energizes you and sort of pours back into your work like that.
Yeah. Because you said that you see it with your own eyes, I just want to mention this trip was extremely special for me because one of the participants, who's also a dear friend named Ashish Goyal, he's blind. And so he experienced this in a fully different way than us, but he says it was a life-changing experience. And for me, being there with him and being able to verbalize what I'm seeing and share that with him was super powerful. He doesn't come from climate. He was the first blind graduate from Wharton MBA, first blind trader on Wall Street or any major index, and he's first blind hedge fund manager as well. So he's a powerful superhuman. And he said that this experience changed his life. So even him feeling it without his eyes, but feeling it with all of his other senses, it definitely is powerful and it changes you.
Yeah. And that's amazing because it's kind of goes hand in hand with what you mentioned before, like with these artists and everything. Once they can share this with the people who are looking up to them or following them, like you said, the footballer and the other artists that you had on the trip, they get to take these experiences back to the people who follow them and say like, hey, this is happening. This is important. And I mean, people obviously listen to those influencers. So that's an amazing opportunity just all around that has such a far reach, clearly.
For sure. So the footballer, he retired. I always worry people are going to get mad at me when these things happen, but because he was a fan favorite, but he's amazing. He retired. He now is a full-time CEO of a bioengineering firm. So
Wow.
He's fully committed to climate. And you know, we have so many stories like that where everyone's just changed their career, changed course to really focus 100% on this.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
So what do you have coming up next for you? It sounds like you do a lot. You have a lot on your plate. You're clearly working with just a ton of people and making these changes. So what do the next 1, 5, 10, I don't know, however many years look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much work to be done. That's what I also want to just pitch, that we need everybody everywhere all at once working on this, because there's an unlimited amount of work. And so that's why we're really picking and choosing in terms of how can we make sure our work is truly scalable from an impact perspective. The work that we're doing with the music industry has been really rewarding, and I feel like we're making great progress. So we want to continue looking for those opportunities of working with like a client in one industry where we have 3 airline clients right now, and saying how can we then push the industry as a whole forward. Especially the reason why I like working with airlines is it's super carbon intensive industry, but they're focused on this now. It's like everyone's eyes are open to it. And so they have to make changes. And so we're super excited about the projects that we're working on with aviation as well.
That's awesome.
So I feel like I have seen a change in consumers over the last 5 years, let alone the last like 15 years, in the way that consumers are making decisions. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel like the general consumer consciousness is changing the ways in which businesses are prioritizing kind of where they're headed?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the kind of clearest examples is in fashion, and I'm fascinated by it, that, you know, all of the fashion companies that we work with, they are well aware. Their research analytics show that seconds, or the resale market, is going to far exceed the firsts. So all of these companies that didn't have them, I saw there's like a Lululemon on the street. They're all creating these resale markets because they realize if they don't own it, if they don't create that opportunity for their customers,
a huge amount of market
they're
share.
losing it, right?
Someone else will.
Yes, and it's super exciting that they're doing that and they're investing in that space. What's also super exciting is the seconds are surpassing the fast fashion. So the fast fashion of the brands of the world are losing market share to people going and buying seconds. And so that's also super exciting because we know that fast fashion has labor and social impact issues. It also has a lot of environmental issues as well. So the more that we can keep existing materials made for a long life in the marketplace and keep them on people, it's better than sending them to buying new, cheap, fast fashion.
Yeah.
I really feel like for me, I saw like a pickup in fast fashion like during or after COVID. And then it was also like immediately same year, it was like, oh, this is really bad. Like, this is really terrible. And people are like, oh, I want fast fashion, but also this is not good. And like you said, we're finally kind of starting to see like, okay, maybe not fast fashion and like the seconds market, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember, actually, it was one of our very early episodes at College of Charleston talking about somebody studying microplastics, being shocked that synthetic fibers from our clothes are one of the top 2 contributors to microplastics everywhere, which makes absolute sense because we're all wearing clothes, and the vast majority of the clothes that are being produced are with at least some % of synthetic fiber, which in a lot of ways for good reason, right? There's a lot of advantages to synthetic fiber when it comes to like clothes that breathe, you know, but every time you wash it, every time you put it through the laundry, it's dumping microplastics into your whatever waste system you have available to process it. And so I'm really glad to hear that there's this shift, this awareness that's rising up around fast fashion from the environmental sector, but also, like you mentioned, all of the other terrible things that are associated with the fast fashion industry. It's definitely good to see some of that change coming forward.
And I think reclamation, so we call it end of life, but looking at and having that producer responsibility attached to the producer. So it's called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. Europe has been way ahead of everywhere else on like trying to make sure that if you're producing batteries, if you're producing electronics, if you're producing clothes, like it's your responsibility to make sure that it doesn't damage the environment in the future. So have a plan for that, like a take back plan.
Right, because you're just passing off the
externality,
cost to like a municipality or to like individual middens or whatever when you're the one that's pumping it out and producing it. It's tying it back to that original producer, and that's absolutely what needs to be happening. And it's shocking to me that that was not in place from the very beginning.
Yep.
So if people wanted to learn more about you, what you do, is there a website or Instagram? What is your preferred method of look me up?
Yeah. So if you want to connect with me, what I say is you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I usually accept connections if you say, oh, I heard about it on the podcast or something like that, just so I know it's a legit person, not a bot. Because I do have an article on my LinkedIn. There's like an article, a blog post about looking for a career in the environment. You're not alone, because I get a lot of requests, almost 5 a week, of people who are asking for informational interviews. And because I travel so much and I work so much, it's hard for me to carve out the time. So I wrote this article that says, if I had an hour to spend with you, this is what I would share. And it has
awesome.
links, and it has videos and things like that. So I encourage folks who are interested in getting in this career to look at that article. And then 3 Squares Inc., spelled out, THREE, Squares, plural, INC. We have an Instagram that we're active on. We have Facebook, and then we have our website.
So if you guys are listening and you'd like to follow, learn more, or read that article, you guys can scroll down to the show notes. I'll drop links right there so you guys can go straight from listening to this to watching the video, the YouTube video of the glacier birthing a gaff, and also to learning a little bit more about 3 Squares Inc.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, and we can't wait to see what else you have to say during the forum here this week.
Thank you both. Great to meet you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts helps other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to everyone working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. See you next time.